Welcome everybody to our FIC National Coalition meeting. Lots going on today, so we will get to it. We are going to start with Chris, who's going to give our little lobbying update, and then we have a special guest who's here with us today. We have Andrea Rush, who is a lawyer who's been working with us with music licensing, and she's going to actually do a quick review with us about what's currently happening with music licensing. With the reopenings happening right now, there's a lot going on, and we still have to keep in mind some of the other things that are on the back burner that we need to be aware of, especially how music is evolving and licensing is changing. So she will be reviewing that with us. And then we're going to, as usual, go on to our updates for the provinces. So that is our agenda for today. So we will start with Chris.
All right. Thank you, Trisha. It's good to be here again, and it's nice to see. I know this will come up in the updates. It's nice to see some provinces starting to roll out their opening plans for fitness facilities. So that's look forward to hearing more about that during the call. Just a few things I wanted to update on, and some of this is not particularly brand new information, but we'll start with the update on rent and the rent subsidy program. As I mentioned last week, more and more provinces continue to ban commercial evictions, and just a couple days ago, Ontario passed legislation that will temporarily ban commercial evictions. That's retroactive to May the 1st until the end of August. So that's obviously a positive move. The Canada Emergency Business Account, that was supposed to launch today. The Prime Minister and Minister Morneau were supposed to launch that, but the application opening has been pushed back. They haven't said when that will open yet, but a number of weeks ago, the government announced that this program was going to be expanded to include companies with payrolls of less than 20,000, with non-deferrable expenses like rent, utility, and property taxes of between 40,000 and 1.5 million. So that's an interesting program that could be applicable to some of you. So let's pay attention to when that comes out, and we'll send information when we get it. I'll send it through Trisha. The Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, again, I know that's one thing that many of you are watching. That does go till the end of August right now, with a probability of an extension into the fall. And the last thing I just wanted to update on is the CERB, the emergency benefit. And the Prime Minister just yesterday or the day before extended that program once again for another 8 weeks to last into September now as well. So I think, Trisha, that was all I really needed to update on, and just give a brief update on that. And then, as always, happy to take questions, or if there are ones you think of after the meeting, please to respond by email.
So if anybody has any questions for Chris or any topics that they would like us to bring up through our government lobbying efforts. Well, you're always welcome to connect with me over email so that we can move anything forward that you'd like to move forward.
There's a comment there. Is that for us here?
Yeah. Blake says, Chris, did you say SEBA has now been extended to companies with the 1.5 million in monthly payroll?
It's not payroll, with rent, utilities, property tax, up to $1.5 million, Blake. Okay. I can send you more information if you want to Trisha about that.
Yeah, Chris, if you do that, I can just send it out to everybody who is interested in that.
Okay, I'll do that today.
Great. Thank you. All right. Let's then move on to Andrea. Andrea, if you don't mind doing a quick introduction to yourself, and then moving on to our discussion points about music licensing.
Well, hi, Trisha, and it's very nice to see you again. I think the last time you invited me to do this, and the last time we spoke actually was about 3 years ago, and I think it was Dave Hardy, I see he's here, who had invited me at that time to share copyright perspectives and give a general roundup. So I think that was in Toronto. And so my time zone was correct. I got it wrong this morning. So I kind of made it early on this call. And I see some others. I won't mention their names, but it's great to see you. And so I wanted to just preface, because we're always required to as lawyers, because I am a lawyer, and saying that I'm not a counsel to the fitness industry. And nothing that I say should be taken as legal advice. Because everything is fact specific, and I'm really generally a copyright lawyer and musician and technology lawyer. So my comments are really just generally as part of a panel and nothing more than that. But on that scope, I love copyright, and I love music and technology, and I love working in this area. And the reason is because it's such a fast-paced area. I mean, if you think that fitness classes are fast-paced and aerobics are fast-paced, nothing is fast-paced as the music industry. And that's really because it's technology driven, more so perhaps than others. When I think back to the development of MIDI as a language, for example, so long ago, it was really, the music industry that drove these technological advances. So the reason that's important is because when you're dealing with copyright and technology and music, you're dealing with many kinds of rights. And that's the way the music industry works. It's when you try to get the rights in something, you always have to think, what do I need? Nothing more, nothing less. Did the grant give it to me? Did it give it to me for the length of time I need, for the place I need, for the use I need? And I really highlight and stress that, because sometimes what you need is more than one right. And the reason you need more than one right is because there is more than one player that created the work to begin with. And there are more than one types of things that you need to do. So how does that kick into music licensing and tariffs? It kicks in because there are different organizations which license, that means grants permission, of course, the rights. And you need to contact them all. So when you need something, when you need a use in a gym, or a use online, or a use anywhere, you're not just dealing with one individual or one organization. You're dealing with a bunch. And sometimes that's tricky in the field of rights clearance. It's really tricky because you don't have a lot of time. And maybe you want to just go launch really quickly, and you think of it after. And you think, oh my goodness, I better go back and get those rights. And then you're really in trouble, because there's nothing like asking somebody for permission after you've done it. It really represents a price hike. It's nicer to have that option and get that permission before you launch, because then you have much more leverage and you have many more options. So in the music industry, it's all about options. And it's all about where do you go and what do you need. So you've been dealing with, as clubs, with two types of organizations in particular, SOCAN and Resound. And SOCAN has a tariff for tariff 19, look to the Copyright Board, tells you exactly what you need to pay. Resound has a tariff, tariff 6, tells you what you need, where you need to go, you take a look. That may not be the whole story, because there may be other types of rights that you need beyond what's in there. So you may be thinking, well, why does it cost so much? So one thing to keep in mind when post-pandemic, and there have been some closures, and there hasn't been use of music, is to take a look at the tariff and see how is it calculated. Is it calculated based on the number of classes that have been held at the time, because there haven't been any classes? Or is it based on square footage, as some tariffs are, because there has been square footage. So you have to go back to the tariff and see how has it been calculated. Then you may say, well, I'm doing new things now. I'm doing online stuff, and I don't want to pay twice. Well, the answer is, do you have two types of values now? One that is in the class and in the venue, and one that is perhaps in somebody's home, in their basement? Because the use of one may subtract from the use of other. And if it doesn't, it's because there really are two sets of values and two types of rights. So the immediate reaction may be, we're opening up and we have all these fees. But the real reaction should be, what did we do before? What did we use? And what are we going to need going forward? And what does the tariff actually give us the right to do? Because the nice thing about this is it's been been pretty collaborative. And by collaborative, I mean SOCAN and Resound now collaborate. They've got an umbrella organization under which they collaborate. The mechanical rights holders, they collaborate with the performing rights holders. There's an association with SOCAN with respect to the SODRA, underlying mechanical rights. So all of it is simply to say that things are actually falling into place. Blockchain has made it easy to get the goods, get the royalties into the genes of the rights holders in an easier, more streamlined way. Music information retrieval services have made it easier to clear those rights, figure out who really has it. So there's a license finder mechanism on the SOCAN website. So if you have any questions about what you need to pay under your tariff, just go to the website, look at that finder, look at that calculator. It will tell you what, when, and where you need to do to manage the use that escalates or decreases or maybe hasn't happened at all. But it's really all there. Then the last thing I wanted to say is that sometimes we talk about royalties in terms of how can we save money, and that's valid. And then other times we can think about royalties in terms of how can we make money, and there are opportunities for fitness clubs. Because if you're in a position where you're designing programs, that's choreography. Maybe you're commissioning original music. Maybe you're developing a service. There are so many opportunities out there for the fitness industry and the clubs to really think about creating and branding their own, because there's a lot of open source music out there which you can use. There again, just a caution. Always take a look at what is the grant. Does it give me everything I need? Do I need all of what I would be getting? Am I getting it from the right people in the right places? And if that's the case, you got some more options to think about. So that's really what I have to say. It's just a general background, as I say, not being counsel to the fitness industry. I'm really just here as a general what is copyright, because I know the gyms are opening and everyone's kind of thinking, well, there's a new fee to pay. And that's why. So if you have any questions, message me offline. If they're general questions, happy to take them, but I hope that helps. And once again, thank you so much for inviting me back to talk about music and copyright and technology, my absolute favorite topics. Nice to see everyone.
Thank you, Andrea. So I just wanted to bring up that, as you know, a lot of the clubs have moved towards digital and making sure you have classes that are virtual, and just to keep in mind that there is specific licensing that goes along with that. So in case you're not aware of that, it's not going to be tariff 19, but 22, I believe. Correct, Andrea?
There are tariffs which have not yet been certified, but they're on the back burner. And I'd say keep an eye on those. There's some under 22 which have already been certified, some more that will come out. Now, the funny thing about the process is everybody is deemed, if you use music, you're deemed to be reading the Canada Gazette and or the Copyright Board website. So I know that's a funny thing to say, but you're supposed to know what's going on. And that really means you're supposed to be tracking when new tariffs are proposed so that you know what's coming down the pipeline and you know how to budget for it. Because it takes a while, it takes sometimes several years before something is proposed, and then the parties work out what should be paid and what's fair. Maybe they go to the Copyright Board, which is staffed with economists and a judge, and it's a lengthy process, and that's actually how I got to meet you guys in the fitness industry. I wish I could say it's because I go to the gyms, but as you can see, I don't go nearly enough. So I got it through the Copyright Board process, which is all about assessing what is fair. And the economists take a look at that. But if you want to have input into that process, you can, and you don't need a lawyer. You don't need me. Anybody at any time can write and explain why a tariff it's too high, or why it doesn't work, it doesn't grant enough, or it just needs to be adjusted. And that's a fantastic opportunity to make your voice heard.
Trisha, if I could just add to that, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sure, it's Dave Hardy. So, for all the people on the call today, Fitness Industry Canada obviously has been a great conduit to come together during COVID and to help us negotiate the reopenings of our gyms. But in the background, we've been working hard. There's SOCAN's Tariff 19 has sort of popped up its head in the last couple of years, where we are now seeing that rather than they used to charge $2.50 per check-in per week for fitness classes, and it used to be on the number of participants in a fitness class, and they've now sort of taken a look at reinterpreting that to be $2.50 per check-in to the entire club. And so, it's going to take people from paying a couple $1,000s a year in tariffs to 20, 30, because if you think most people have about 10% of their, 10 or 20% of their attendance in a group fitness class, you could see a 5 to 10 times increase in your SOCAN fees. So Fitness Industry Canada has been working diligently on that. Trisha and Scott are on it. I'm helping on that. So we have a little subcommittee going. And there's also a new group called In Tandem that is coming together so that SOCAN and Resound are now going to be collecting their tariffs with one almost collection agency, rather than each of them having their own separate groups doing it. So there's a lot that still goes on, and I know a lot of people on the call probably don't hear about it, but there's an opportunity for a lot of clubs that are on the phone today to see their SOCAN fees go from $2,000 to $10,000 or $20,000 a year. And again, those are the kind of things that Fitness Industry Canada is working hard to make sure that doesn't happen. So I'll leave that at that. I know this call isn't going to be, we're not going to go too deep into music licensing, but I just want you to know that there's more than, and as Andrea said, it's I'm not sure I'm as excited about it as you, Andrea, but it is definitely a fast-moving part of the law. And as a trade association, Trisha and Scott and everyone that volunteers is working hard to make sure that our industry doesn't get hit by it.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And we're definitely connecting with SOCAN and Resound to see if there's anything that can be adjusted for when the calculations were done when it comes to music licensing and then being charged by number of participants. Since during COVID-19, there hasn't been any classes, if there's an adjustment that can be made there. So we are in the works, speaking to them, making sure that we are working with them instead of trying to fight them. I do notice in the chat box here that Jeff has a question about live streaming classes on Facebook, and then finding that Facebook has sent them a message about them having to mute the songs because of rights to the music, and if there's any options to address this. So if anybody on the call has any ideas or any recommendations for Jeff?
Actually, I would just mention something which is I find really interesting, is that YouTube used to do takedowns and send out notices and do takedowns, and they have fantastic software that they developed through a project, which allowed them to develop a library so that if you liked a certain genre and it was the subject of, would have been a takedown, they'll point you in the direction of their royalty-free library and say basically, why don't you just use that instead? You know, as in like, let's just not have any spats but anything here. Why don't you just use the stuff that is okay? And that is an amazing alternative to get you where you want to go without a lawsuit. So I just thought that was a fantastic resource.
Great, thank you so much, Andrea. And I think that piece of information is going to be beneficial for a number of people on this call. So if anybody has any further questions on music licensing, we can connect later, and keep in mind that this is something that FIC has been dealing with and working with for quite a while now. So we won't take too much of this call now on this, but it is something that we are working on in the background. So thank you for your time, Andrea.
Bye, everybody.
All right, so moving on, we are going to be going to our provincial updates, and today we will start with Ontario. So if Chuck is on the line, I will kindly ask you to talk about all the exciting things that are happening in Ontario.
Hi, Trisha. Can you hear me now? I'm unmuted.
Yes, we can hear you.
So we had a phone call this morning, our reps from Ontario, with 3 government officials, one from the Ministry of Health, one from the Ministry of Finance, one from the Ministry of Labor, and then also the rep from the Premier's office. All to say is we gave our presentation. They did a really nice job. Brian was on the call too, showing through. We had Carl from BC also speaking to the matter. At the end of it, we asked for 2 things. One was some observation into the guidelines or restrictions for Ontario so we can do thoughtful planning and training for our teams. And the second was a projected opening date. They loosely pushed us towards, if you follow their guidelines, they could be within 3 weeks going to stage 3 openings. So that's the update. Hope to get more on the guidelines that or the restrictions for opening, but they don't exist currently, or at least we haven't been privy to them. So we are excited and optimistic. We finally broke through. That's it from Ontario. If there's any questions, feel free.
Great, thank you, Chuck. Any questions for the Ontario group? So I know the Ontario group has been working very diligently and working very hard this last couple weeks to get meetings going with their government officials. So hopefully we get some good news coming shortly and some guidelines set.
And if anybody wants those restrictions, Trish, it's the guidelines that mimic Alberta's, but we can send them to them. So if you do want anything, email it through on the chat and I'll send you over the package that got presented.
Chuck, it's Blake McDonald here with Orange Theory. Just wondering if you had heard, so 3 weeks would be July 10th. Is July 10th going to be for all regions, or are they still thinking about Ontario in terms of 3 different regions?
They wouldn't come out and say it directly, but they are still thinking of it regionally, and they nudge us towards the 2 to 4 week guideline from each that they put forward for each opening from stage 1 to 2 to 3, which he said you should, within 3 weeks, if you follow that guidelines, you'll be getting open, depending if any hotspots occur, and it would be regional. He didn't outright say it, but he did lean heavily towards the region, the 3 quadrants that they're showing. Does that answer it, Blake?
Gotta unmute myself. Sorry. Yeah, that does answer it. So it sounds like the July 10th would be for rural Ontario, and then you'd see probably downtown Toronto, for example, not until the end of June. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
That's my thinking. They, like I said, they were incredibly hospitable, but they're politicians, so they're hard to corner. But he nudged heavily that it would be moving unless something, as long as the trends continued, we would be open within 3 weeks by region, more than likely.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Chuck. Let's move to Quebec. If Nathalie, you could take us to Quebec.
Well, it's all champagne in Quebec this week. Everybody do this. We're a little tired, but we did it. So we were informed by the Sport Minister's office on Monday that we could have a call with them on Tuesday because the announcement was going to be made on Wednesday. So these are all days of this week, that gyms, all sport, all indoor sport and physical activity, including gyms, are allowed to open this coming Monday, the 22nd. So that's fast for some people. It's finally for a lot of others. A few highlights of the decision that was made. Number one, we were told that they liked working with us. They appreciated that we were a coalition that works together, especially because the sport minister is used to working with federations and associations. They found it difficult that some factions of the fitness industry coalition had been created, or they called themselves a coalition of small personal training studios, which is pretty much all CrossFit, but they were starting to do some pressure tactics and threatening to open even if they didn't have permission and do all kinds of things like that. And they told us they prefer the way that we worked with them, utilizing our colleagues at the lobby firm and doing so in a professional manner and all these other things. So it was nice to hear that, and gives us an opportunity to keep working, moving forward with FIC's coalitions, whether it be provincial or whether it be national. The double-edged sword of working with the sport minister, as opposed to being under the umbrella of the financial or commerce minister's office, is it's a little loosey-goosey in terms of what we need to do. They're putting everything in the hands of the federations, everything in the hands of the associations, and everything in the hands of the business owners, which makes it easier for people who are comfortable with flexibility and decision-making, tougher for those that wanted a 72-page guidelines booklet, because that's not what's happening. Ours was pretty much a one-pager, along with what was created by, I guess, WorkSafe Quebec, if you want to call it that, the CNE SST, but that's really focused on staff. So it includes use of the microwave and the lunchroom and all kinds of things like that. But really what it is for us was 2 meters social distancing, just like it is for everything else, some sort of control of people coming in so that there aren't big clusters of people being there. Even for locker rooms, they said, well, we prefer you not do it, but it's not mandatory. So very few things that are mandatory and mandated. The only one that is, because it's what is now mandated in all indoor spaces where people come, stay put, and then leave in Quebec, is a 50% person maximum per what I would call a space, essentially a closed area, which means if you've got an open concept gym and a group fitness studio and a cycling studio, as long as you can accommodate for 2 meters in between each person, you could have up to 50 in each of those. However, if you are a massive open space facility with no enclosures, no walls, then it's still 50, regardless of how big your facility is. And that's the case that was announced a few days before gyms. It was announced, for example, for Place des Arts. So same thing with movie theaters and all those indoor spaces where you come, you stay, and you leave. So not malls, not stores, but the types of places that are experiential, concert halls, all that kind of thing. Those are at 50 max for now. We'll see what happens as we move forward. But that was the bit that They at least did it for each individual training space. We were worried it was going to be 50 period, but it's 50 per 4 walled closed space. And so our suggestion to the big open ones were like, put up some walls, because as silly as it sounds, with social distancing, I think we're stuck with that for a really, really long time. So it might, even if it's a temporary something, or if you'd rather have people training in the group fitness studio rather than a group fitness class, then use whatever you can with that. So we've been working really closely with the gyms here that had a gazillion questions when all this happened and wanted to make sure they were doing it well. I've been incredibly inspired, not only by obviously the support of the FICQC, so Sam and Charlie in particular, but all the gyms that are part of the coalition that are wanting to do things so diligently and really focused on the care of their members and the care of their staff. Some of them will open Monday. Some of them are waiting another few weeks for a variety of reasons. And so we'll see in the weeks to come what happens with that. The last bit I would add to that is it was quite remarkable how clearly it is that the Quebec government does not see physical activity, nor gyms, nor kinesiology as part of the preventative healthcare system. Because gyms were the first to close and we are almost the last to open. Bars, I think, are the only thing that's not open yet. And they say it's because people's, inhibitions are down when they drink and they're worried about social distancing, but we're pretty much last. And so now that the lines of communication are open, there's clearly work that needs to be done as it relates to that specifically. And I have posted it, the article or the research from the CDC that people who had the underlying conditions of cardiorespiratory issues, diabetes or lung issues were 12 times more likely to die from COVID-19 than those that didn't, to which all of them, as you guys know very well, highly preventable by what we do. And so we need to start talking loud and clear to the Quebec government, all of them, but to the Quebec government in particular, that thinks that gyms are still, where you flex your biceps in 1982 and don't understand the things that we do, even though the kinesiology departments in the 2 biggest universities are in the medicine faculties, in the faculties of medicine. So there's work that needs to be done here in terms of where we go from there. But really positive, everyone's excited, everyone's a little bit scared and rehiring everybody and putting up whatever they haven't done. And slowly but surely we will reopen. The 2 largest chains are opening Monday and Wednesday. So that's 35%. If you put those 2 together of the gyms in Quebec, just because it's the 2 largest chains, will be open at least by the end of next week. I think it'll be closer to 50 to 60 by the end of next week will be open, and the other ones are slowly but surely going back into it. And that's it. Any questions on that? Anybody want to ship me some champagne? Just kidding. I'm not, but we'll figure it out. Next FIC party.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, let's go from opening to somebody who has already opened for the last couple weeks. So let's move to BC. And if Jeff, you want to take that away.
Hey guys, how's it going? Yeah, we've been reopened. Our first phase of reopening in BC started a month ago today, actually, and we're coming up to a month of being reopened next week. So it's not too much updates to talk about. It's been really positive so far. Members, we're going on 4 weeks, so members are still really abiding by the rules, the distancing, the cleaning up after themselves. There hasn't been a lot of pushback. We never opened our showers, obviously, and that's the only kind of thing I'm starting to hear right now is people like, when are the showers going to be open, or the steam room or stuff like that. In our health guidelines that were sent to us, the showers weren't addressed to be closed. It said they don't recommend change rooms be open, but there's nothing in there that said that showers actually had to be closed. So I'm not opening them yet, but it's something that probably will be, I don't know, hopefully maybe soon. But yeah, there hasn't been any change to the health guidelines yet, or any that I've seen. And then for province-wise, we are going to our 3rd phase, or the next phase of reopenings next week. So it's pretty good because since it's been a month since the last one, and there hasn't been a big spike in provincial numbers. So yeah, it's been pretty positive. One of the things, if you're reopening, that I've kind of noticed in a month being into it, is just the amount of, like, we use paper towel and spray bottles for sanitation for the members, and we are going 3 or 4 times the amount of what we used to do in the past. So our bills for all that is just going through the roof right now. So it's just something, I don't know, some of you guys might want to, I assumed they'd be a lot higher, but I didn't assume they would be as high as they've gotten to this point. So just, just something to look out for. I just checked our check-ins, and we're actually checked in more people this year than we did last year. So people are definitely coming back, but we're going through a ton of supplies right now. But other than that, everything is pretty positive out here in BC. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. There's a question here from Scott about to all those are opening or already open, if they have found any cancellations directly related to showers, downtown specific.
Yeah, we're out in the suburbs, so but a lot of people come in first thing in the morning and shower and go straight to work. So yeah, we have had a few of that. Not enough. I mean, it's short answer is yes, we have had a few.
But not enough to justify the extra cost of a locker room attendant, for example.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And and we have our cleaning bill is lowered because they do take quite a lot of time to clean as well at night. So we are saving money on that end. It is something that'll probably be, one of the first things to kind of come back. But we just haven't, I don't feel comfortable enough yet. I don't know, we'll see how it goes in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. There's another question here. Did anyone in BC experiment the time between classes in a studio? Because if you add 30 minutes, let's say instead of 15 minutes, you expose the customers to more time to connect together. I believe this is from Melody, is it, this question?
Yeah, sorry.
No problem, if you wanted to just explain what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. We have a big question here in Quebec, as Nat just said, we have the right to reopen. We were asking ourselves if you have any experience in BC as you open yet, how much time, let's say in a class, you have in a studio where you have multiple classes, one after the other, how many time you put between those classes, because we really have different, version where we say, well, if we put more times, then we have the group 1 and group 2 that spend more time together instead of having 15 minutes like before or even less. Do you have any advice or experience on that?
Yeah, we used to run our classes pretty much back to back, and now we've got a 15-minute gap in between, so that one group goes and the next group kind of comes, and there's no overlap with that. And it gives us, we get 2 or 3 people going into the studio, like staff, and we just clean all the equipment, spray it all down. I was experimenting with a fog machine this week, and just giving it a good kind of spray and let it sit for a sec, and it doesn't get all soaking wet, but it does, sanitize everything, and then you just put everything back away. And that worked out. But, I had borrowed this fogger. They're very hard to get right now, and they're like $700-800. So they're really marking them up. But it might be something that we look through in the future. But in between our classes now, we do 15 minutes, and it's just spray, clean the floor, clean all the equipment, in and out, and then we get the next class going.
And you don't find that you have those 15 from group 1 going out, meeting the group 2 that is waiting, and then you connect all those people together?
Our studio has a couple different doors in it, and we've made one an exit door and one an entry door. So and they're on different sides of the room. So we're kind of lucky where people can leave out one door and they don't really see the other people at all. And they can kind of go out that way. As well as our classes, we can only fit 15 in it before, where we used to get up to 30. before all this started. So yeah, that hasn't been an issue. I mean, the one kind of issue is when we're cleaning and people start waiting to get in, then we kind of get a little bit of a group, but there's enough space where outside of our studio where everyone can space out.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. There's also a question about if clubs are open and they experience a member or employee with COVID. If so, do they have to shut down operations? That's actually something you need to make your employees aware of. Make sure that the members who have attended, because we can do contact tracing, that the members who have attended can are informed of, and making sure that you do check with your local health authority on the protocols for that specifically. Let's go to Saskatchewan. Is Bilal on? I don't see Bilal. Anybody from Saskatchewan on who might want to speak?
Hey guys, it's Skye.
Hi, Skye.
How's it going, Trish? So, I'm sorry, I just joined the call about 5 minutes ago. We opened up on, we were allowed to open up June 8th. We opened up our Evolution Fitness clubs last Saturday. Seeing a lot of things that you guys are seeing. We're about 2/3 attendance. Our sales were unbelievable. I think we were almost at 300 sales between 3 clubs in the last week. But on the flip side, suspensions and cancellations continue to come in hot and heavy, far outweighing new sales. So that's not good. I'm hoping they slow down. People respecting the rules. You know, we mostly find it's a lot younger crowd. It's more male dominant, and everybody's on the weights. Not a lot of people on cardio. Our group exercise restriction is either 2 meter and 9 people max, or 4 meter distancing with up to 14 participant max. So that's gone well. It's working okay. People coming to classes. As you guys know, Orange Theory and other studios are being hampered by that 4 meter distance rule or a 9-person max rule. So we haven't opened those up in Saskatchewan as of yet. We're hoping for those restrictions to settle down a little bit. That's basically it. A lot of the people that we are getting to sign up with us are what I call orphaned members. They are not the person that's been sitting on the couch for the last 3 months, gaining weight and saying, "Oh man, I need to join a gym." These are people that were gym members at a different gym. That this is a lifestyle for them, and they can't even wait the 2 or 3 weeks for their gym to sign up. They're coming in to buy memberships with us, and so I'm not sure who's on the call, but my recommendation for you guys is the more you got to be prepared. You got to have all your ducks in a row. But the earlier you open, once you're allowed to open, the more advantage you will take of these orphan members that just want a place to work out. That's it.
Great, thank you, Skye. Manitoba, Stephanie, if you want to tell us what's happening in Manitoba.
Sure thing. So we have been open since June the 1st. We were allowed to open fitness facilities here. It started off with group fitness needing, every person needed 100 square feet of space, which was kind of difficult to manage. Especially small studios have really been struggling just due to the size kind of component. Now they did roll that back. So now it's the 2 meter rule in between people, but it's still 50% capacity. We have done some reaching out to our fitness industry here in Manitoba with some surveys and things like that, just to see how everyone is kind of faring. So across the board, at this point, we just finished the survey just a couple days ago. 50% of clubs here are at 25% or less of their pre-COVID numbers, which is quite distressing to a lot of them because they have increased staff time and increased costs for all kinds of things and decreased numbers. of people coming back. We also asked in the survey why people are not coming back. So if they're giving you a reason, if they're calling or emailing and saying, hey, I'm not coming back, what is the reason that they're giving? And most of the people, that like the top two, I don't feel safe and I'm not ready to come back. So it's not that they're, you know, taking on a home program, or maybe they are and they just don't want to, you know, say that that's the reason they're not coming back. But so that's kind of what we are kind of dealing with here. As far as showers and things like that, we were told that we shouldn't open showers or locker rooms, you know, discourage use as much as possible. Otherwise, it has to be cleaned in between. So most fitness facilities here are not using their showers at all. I actually don't have one that responded to the survey and said that they were using showers. Locker rooms, it's kind of hard to get around not using a locker room, especially when people come in with their stuff, and otherwise you have bags of stuff kind of all over the place. So they also had to create a sanitation station just inside the door. I think that's a pretty average kind of standard. We are also working with the Manitoba Tourism Education Council, and they have created a program called Clean It Right. And it's a certificate program that gyms as well as retail restaurants can take as long as at least, actually I think 100% of their cleaning staff has to take it. And if they take it, they get a sticker for the door that says that this facility is undertaking extreme cleaning measures and adhering to the guidelines of the Clean It Right program. I actually took the time yesterday and did the program myself just to kind of see what was involved in it. It is a little retail restaurant heavy because gyms, they kind of thought about it the 11th hour. So they kind of added some stuff in for gyms, but I think they did a good job of it. It's called Clean It Right, and it's a free program. So anyone can sign up for it. And they've actually done some promotion here in Manitoba that says if you see this sticker on a door of a facility that you're going into, they have participated in this program. So the public knows what the logo means, and that's really helpful. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We're hoping for some changes to the guidelines with phase 4, which has been announced as of Sunday, and there are no changes coming up. I understand that fitness will be looked at a little bit later on, but at this point, if it's still at 50% capacity and it's still at social distancing, I don't know that there's much else that we can kind of do here. They have also limited our use of anything that's porous, so no foam blocks, no foam rollers. Those are specifically listed in the guidelines. And I see there's a question here. Specific actions taken to get group fitness classes from 4 meters to 2 meters. I honestly think it was a math issue. Quite funny because when they first announced it, there was some confusion even amongst the government officials about it. So I'm not sure where the 4 meters came from to begin with, but the 2 meters rolled up pretty quickly, and it was just replaced online. Like they didn't even do any kind of outreach to say this is some of the changes that we've kind of taken. So does anyone have any questions about what's going on here in Manitoba?
I can speak to the 4 meters a little bit. I know there was a study that came out from in the medical world. I don't know if it ever became public that the suggestion for aerobic exercise was 3 to 4 meters specifically. So that may have been where that came from in these provincial guidelines.
Hey, Stephanie, it's Blake McDonald here with Orange Theory. Just a quick question on something you said there. The survey that you sent out to fitness clubs indicated that they were at 25% of their pre-COVID membership numbers. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's what they said. So we gave them an option of 10%, 25%, 50%, 75%, or 100% of where they felt that they were with regards to pre-COVID numbers, and 55% were 25% or under.
Is that attendance or is that members?
Is that usage?
That's usage.
Okay.
Usage.
Yeah.
And Stephanie, would you be able to put the name of the program that you spoke of just in the chat box there?
Sure thing.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that update. Alberta, Scott, if you want to take us to Alberta.
Great, thank you. So Alberta's been mixed. A lot of the larger facilities have opened. A lot of the CrossFit studios, CrossFit gyms have opened. And they're experiencing pretty good.
No, it's not.
Both of them.
You guys can just mute your phones if you're, that'd be awesome. The boutiques, a number of the boutiques just with the 3-meter distance requirement have not opened yet and are citing that as a challenge. So that's kind of the negative side of it. However, the government, almost the exact opposite of Quebec, they actually are really looking at recovery as a province in terms of not only financial recovery, but from a wellness perspective. So we actually, right before or right after this meeting last Friday, we had a meeting with the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, and they are very interested in leveraging our sector and specifically via the Prescription to Get Active program to help with mental health. And they actually see a tsunami coming of anxiety and depression, which is going to hinder presenteeism and productivity back in the workforce. And they know that they're, the traditional hospitals and docs and private therapists are just not going to be able to handle the volume. So they're actually looking, he actually told us which grant to apply for and what to put in the grant application. So it was very encouraging, but not only to ramp that program up, but also to look at what would motivate people or incentivize them to become active, such as tax credits or even partial reimbursement for new members who come via the prescription program. So I thought that was the best meeting I've ever had in my entire career, and we're very excited to move forward with that application. And then on Tuesday, we had a meeting with the Minister of, or the Ministry, not the actual Minister, of Economic Development. And they are very interested in working with our sector and our association on what's working, what's not working. So we've actually put together a small group of folks, and Blake, I did invite you, so you're coming, I hope, to attend a meeting next Tuesday with the ministry to just give them feedback. And hopefully we can make, really look at the boutiques and the 3 meters. Maybe we can get that down to 2 meters like they have done in Manitoba, because it seems like this government really wants to hear what other jurisdictions are doing. So I'm very hopeful there. And they were also looking at, how can they incentivize people to become active and access our space. So I think those are we're looking good in Alberta, potentially. Fingers crossed.
Great, thank you, Scott. Oh, was there somebody else who wanted to say something? I thought I just cut someone off. All right, is Rob here for PI? Don't know if I saw him today. So he might not be here. Which is fine, because there is another topic I did want to bring up, which was brought to me by Angela yesterday, and it was the concern about a second wave and what people are doing in order to strategize and to think about what to do if that was to come. So if anybody has any thoughts about that or any considerations that they would like to share.
Well, I'll just say that we pivoted to online training and online classes, and not only the Instagram, but the Gym Movement Go, and we're keeping all of that. We're keeping it for 2 reasons. One, a lot of our members still want to access it, so a lot of members aren't ready to come running back to the gym. And those that are ready, they might not be able to access the facility at the same frequency, so there's definitely going to be a bit of a hybrid, but that will position us, God forbid we have to close again, that we at least have those services available. So that's what we've done.
Have you changed your waiver and your contracts, like your normal membership contracts regarding?
it's just a membership type, and our members can upgrade or downgrade or change membership types as they wish. So just having that available and letting people know that it's available. So we'll see. We haven't opened yet. We're opening next Friday. So we'll see how many people gravitate to that, but just having that available, I think, is going to be real positive. So that's what we're doing.
Scott, can I ask, with what you just mentioned about the Alberta government and where you guys are at with the prevention of mental illness, et cetera, would there not be an opportunity for us to suggest that gyms perhaps not close if there's a second wave? If they're going to start, like, certainly not close first, as well, I know that we did here, of the idea of keeping something there, because they keep saying the second wave is probably not going to be as big as the first one. It is, however, probably going to be more related to our clientele rather than to the elderly, is what they're saying anyways for the second one. But would there be actually something there? I know it's not completely in our power, but something along the lines of there's an opportunity to stay open and to handle the population from a preventative standpoint, in other words.
Yeah, I think there is. You know, my personal opinion, and this is just my personal opinion, and is I don't think they will close down society if there's a second wave again. I think we'll do what Sweden's done, because honest to God, we can't afford this as a society. So, you know, I think that's my personal opinion, but absolutely, I think continuing to work with our governments through this association and let them know that we are part of the solution, I think is really beneficial. So.
All right, thank you. And I also do want to mention that URSA has a webinar that is coming out on the 24th, and that's with the Medical Association in partnership with fitness industry. So I will put the link to the webinar in the chat box here and send it out. So if anybody is interested in that relationship and how the medical industry is connecting with fitness clubs, it is focused on the States, but as you know, things are transferable. So please check that out. We will be making sure that we do as well in order to have as much accurate information as we can get. Other than that, we've been having these meetings every week for a little while now. So we thought we'd do a little survey here quickly to see if you are good with having the weekly meetings like we have been having, or if you would prefer to go bi-weekly.
I think there's still so much happening so quickly, and you know, Ontario's in the process of finding out when they're going to be open. So I vote for weekly, just because it seems to change almost daily.
I agree.
Weekly, all right. And then there is quite a few in the chat box that say weekly. Perfect. All right, so then weekly it is. And on that note, I will see you all next week. And just keep in mind, if you are not a member of FIC yet, this is the time where we need the biggest support, the most support. Please do connect with me so we can get you as a contributing member. And I will set up the call for next week, same time, same place. We are moving to Zoom, so now things will be a little bit smoother now that I know how to get the recording ready. So I will see you next week.
Yep.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.